guys, Miss Brittany here with you again today. I hope that all of you all are at home and safe and having a good time with your families. Today we are going to introduce the lesson, Breaking the Cycle of Anger. Now, anger is a very powerful and negative emotion, and if we don't control and channel it, then we can allow it to snowball. And so it's going to get bigger, and it's going to get bigger. And so we're going to use some positive action to help us gather resources and insight into being able to break the cycle of anger. And so we can use some clear thinking and better judgment calls. And maybe things won't seem as bad as they seem to be to you. And so, how many of you have ever felt guilty and taken your anger out on someone else? These are things that we need to consider as well. And does the fact that you can hurt yourself with others, will anger always come out as a negative emotion? Well, I guess that depends on how we react to the anger. We have to be able to express the way that we feel so others will know, and that is not unhealthy. It is just the way that we go about doing that is where we can get into trouble sometimes. And so the cycle of anger can be broken with rationale and positive thoughts, so throwing those unrealistic thoughts out. We can use discipline, so teaching ourselves. We can take deep breathing to calm our thoughts. We can look at the situation and try to view it more clearly. And we need to resist the wasteful activity of telling ourselves that our anger is justified. That means that, yes, it is okay for me to feel this way because that person did this to me. And so a lot of times we justify the reasons why we are upset to make us feel better about our behavior. And so we need to retrain our brains and use the lessons that we have been learning about to be able to change that, okay? So we want to use positive actions the next time that we are angered or angry, sorry about that, to try and break that cycle. And so I would just like to kind of map out the cycle of anger. And the first thing that you are going to experience is the trigger. So we have our trigger, okay? And then from the trigger comes the negative thought. So I'm just going to kind of abbreviate here. So we have our negative thought. Maybe you're feeling that you're the worst kid in the entire world, or that someone else only cares about themselves and no one else. And so that is the negative thought from the trigger. Now from the negative thought comes the emotional aspect of it. So this is our emotions. And so maybe we might feel some shame or some guilt about the negative thoughts from the trigger. And so we're just kind of going around showing the cycle of anger. Now from the emotions comes the physical aspects. And so remember, we have spoken about doing a self-check with yourself, checking in to see how you're doing, learning those physical triggers. Are you having a racing heart? Are your hands sweaty? Do you clench your fists? Those are all symptoms and cues letting us know, warning signs that we are getting angered. So from the physical comes the behavior. And so this is how we respond to the anger. And so this may be fighting, yelling at each other, calling each other bad names. And so that's the cycle of abuse. And it kind of looks like this. And so it just kind of goes around. We have the trigger, the negative thought, the emotion, the physical cues, and the behavior. And so that is the cycle of abuse. now that we know the cycle of abuse and kind of understand how that works a little bit, we can retrain our brains. We can retrain our brains and use all of the skills that we have been learning to be able to deal with situations in a little bit different way. And we can inform others and let them know the things that we have learned to help them be better communicators. That was also in one of our other lessons that we had spoken about. And when we are better able to communicate with each other, then we can have better relationships with our peers, with our teachers at school, with our guardians, and friends outside of school as well. Because nobody wants to be around a grumpy Gus all the time. That's not fun. Or to be around someone who really doesn't want to do anything. That's not really people that I would like to surround myself with. So we need to think about, how is my anger making me look? Is this a way that I want to portray myself to others? And so oftentimes people will put a label on others, and you could be labeled as the bad child, and you're not. That's a faulty statement. You're not a bad child. You've just made some decisions that weren't the best. But unfortunately, sometimes we can get a label depending on how we continue to deal with different situations in our life, as far as acting out and being self-managers and controlling that anger. And so just always remember that anger is a normal emotion. It is okay to be angry. We just have to learn a way to have positive behavior, because as we talked about in the cycle of abuse, there's always that trigger, and we need to be able to recognize what that trigger is, so we know that we need to avoid this situation. Maybe we need to stay away from whatever that trigger may be, or surround yourself with peers that may be a trigger for you as well. And it is okay to remove yourself from people or situations that can be a trigger to you, because it's all about your mental health and your quality of life, and that you should be happy, and you shouldn't have to change and adapt to someone else's way of thinking. You are an individual. Always remember that. And let's just be careful how we express our anger with other people, and always treat others the way that you would like to be treated. And that is all that I have for today, guys, and I hope to see you soon.